I never wanted to get married, just the thought of it filled me with fear. And there was a very specific reason for that. One of my closest friends had been through such a painful experience in the name of marriage that I grew to despise the word itself. She had left her home with high hopes, dreaming of a beautiful new life. But once she reached her in-laws' house, she discovered that her husband had only married her to have a child. The moment she gave birth, they divorced her and sent her back, taking her baby away from her. Every time I met her and saw the way she yearned for her child, my heart would ache. I kept thinking, I never want to go through that. To me, marriage felt like a gamble. If it worked out, it was a lifelong blessing. But if it failed, it became a burden one had to carry forever, just like my friend was doing. But who can escape what fate has written? No matter how much I refused, my parents began emotionally blackmailing me. They would say, what will happen to you when we're gone? A woman can't survive without a man. Society doesn't let her live in peace. You have to get married. I was their only daughter, and they had high hopes for my wedding. My father pretended to fall ill, and my mother turned her back on me in silence. Seeing their behavior, I finally gave in and agreed to marry. I was 18 by then, and proposals had started coming in, but none of them were suitable enough for my parents to say yes. That brought me some peace, and I made it clear that unless a truly good and compatible proposal came, I wouldn't get married. I even listed several conditions. The man had to be well-educated, mature, from a small family, and open-minded. Finding someone like that could easily take a year or two, and that thought gave me comfort. Then one day, one of my mother's friends came to visit. I prepared tea and brought biscuits into the living room to serve her. She had visited a couple of times before, but my mother had always kept me busy with chores, so I never had the chance to meet her properly. This time, I took the initiative myself, brought the tea, and greeted her with a warm salam. She placed her hand gently on my head and gave me heartfelt prayers. There was such affection and kindness in her tone that I felt genuinely happy to meet her. But my mother's behavior was strange. She seemed nervous, even uneasy. After a few moments, she said, "Ulfat, go finish up the work in the kitchen. Why are you sitting here?" Before I could move, her friend held my hand and smiled, saying, "I'm meeting Ulfat after so long. Let her sit with me for a while. We can talk. She'll get back to work soon." She began asking me about my studies and general life. I responded politely and warmly. She was still holding my hand gently in hers. But then I glanced at my mother, and my heart nearly stopped. She was staring at me with sharp, almost furious eyes, as if my sitting there was deeply offensive to her. In that moment, I understood what was going through her heart. I quietly stood up and apologized to the auntie, saying I had some chores to finish, and left the room. I couldn't understand what had suddenly upset my mother. I had only been having a simple, polite conversation with her friend, but from the look on her face, you'd think I had said something terribly wrong. A little while after my mother's friend had left, my mother stormed into the kitchen, furious. She looked at me and snapped, "Don't you understand anything? I've told you 1,000 times. Stop showing your face to outsiders. You're growing up now. Learn to be careful." I was shocked. I hadn't met any men. I'd only been sitting with a woman. And not just any woman, my mother's own friend, someone who had visited our home a couple of times before. I couldn't understand why my mother was so angry. She went on, "I don't like it when strangers stare at you. You're of marriageable age now, and I want to marry you into a good, respectable family. There's no need to be seen by just anyone." None of her words made any sense to me. I couldn't understand what she was really trying to say. As far as I was concerned, there was nothing wrong with my mother's friend, but just a few days later, that same woman returned to our house with a marriage proposal. And this time, my mother's reaction left me speechless. I couldn't believe this was the same woman my mother once called her friend. Who treats a friend like that? Her friend had come with a proposal from her relative's son, but my mother didn't even let her explain. She coldly told her, "Know your place. Ulfat is my daughter, and I'll marry her into a wealthy, respectable household. How dare you even bring such a proposal for her?" She practically threw her out of the house. Had it been up to her, she would have pushed the poor woman out the door herself. Her friend's eyes filled with tears. "What sin have I committed?" she asked. "At least consider the proposal. The boy is good, kind, and comes from a well-off family. You might even like him." But my mother refused to hear a word and slammed the door shut behind her. She spent the whole day angrily tossing things around the house. I couldn't make sense of her attitude or the reason for her outrage, but I didn't have the courage to ask why she had humiliated her friend like that. What harm would it have done to simply consider the proposal like all the others? Even if she had refused later, that woman never returned to our door again, and my mother never mentioned her after that either. A month later, a new proposal came for me from a very wealthy family. The boy was rich, educated, and came from a well-established background. My parents were extremely impressed. When my father showed me his photo, I liked him too. He was handsome, young, and successful. He seemed to have all the qualities one could hope for. The best part was that his parents lived in Canada, and he was only coming here for the wedding. The proposal had been arranged by the boy's maternal aunt. After careful consideration, my mother and father agreed, and wedding preparations began. Everyone was surprised that such a wealthy family had proposed for me. My mother simply told everyone, "This is Ulfat's destiny." And truly, I couldn't believe how lucky I had gotten. Even before the wedding, the groom's family sent so many gifts and so much jewelry that I could never have imagined it. My parents, too, were going above and beyond their means to make everything perfect for me. One day, my father handed me 50,000 rupees and said, "Go buy some dresses. If you start shopping bit by bit, it'll be easier when the wedding gets closer." The wedding was just a month away. My mother wanted to wrap up all the preparations quickly. But trouble struck when my mother slipped in the bathroom and was confined to bed. Her back was injured so badly that even standing up was painful. Everything came to a standstill. One day she said to me, "How long will you sit around waiting for me? Take your friend Neelam with you and go to the market. Choose whatever you like." Neelam was the same friend who had been divorced by her husband. "She stays locked inside her house all day," my mother added. "It'll be good for her to get out too." So, following my mother's advice, I went shopping with Neelam. We had bought quite a few nice clothes and were just about to leave the market when Neelam spotted her ex-husband in the crowd. He was holding their child in his arms. The moment Neelam saw her baby, she became restless and said, "I'll be right back. I just want to see my child once." And without waiting for my response, she rushed toward them, leaving me standing alone. That's when my mother's friend, the same woman who had once brought a marriage proposal and been insulted, pulled up beside me in a large car. She rolled down the window, looked at me warmly, opened the door, and signaled for me to get in. I glanced at Neelam, who was now caught in an argument with her ex-husband, and couldn't bring myself to refuse. I stepped into the car. She started chatting with me casually. When she heard that I was getting married soon, she smiled, opened her purse without hesitation, and handed me 50,000 rupees. "Buy something for yourself from me, a small gift," she said. "Your mother ended our friendship so abruptly, but I still see you like one of my own daughters." I was stunned. My eyes widened at the sight of such a large amount of money. Who gives such an expensive gift? And that, too, from someone my mother had practically thrown out of our house. I politely returned the money to her hand and apologized. She insisted over and over, but I didn't budge. Finally, she took off a beautiful gemstone bracelet from her wrist and pressed it into my palm. "Now don't refuse," she said with affection, "or I'll be very upset." I stayed quiet, moved by her kindness. I tucked the bracelet into my purse, knowing full well that if my mother saw it, there would be a storm of questions. After we spoke for a few more moments, I got out of the car. Neelam had returned by then, her eyes filled with tears. She was cursing her ex-husband. He hadn't even let her hold her own child. I gently comforted her, held her hand, and brought her home. We finished the rest of my wedding shopping together. By the time my wedding approached, my mother's health had improved a little. Finally, the big day arrived. Neelam helped dress me with her own hands, and I looked absolutely beautiful. While rummaging through my purse for something, Neelam found the bracelet. It matched perfectly with my wedding outfit, so she gently fastened it on my wrist. It looked even more radiant against my fair skin. Soon after, the groom's procession arrived with great pomp and celebration. The marriage ceremony was completed, and the time for my departure came. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I said goodbye to my parents. I left with my husband, Babar, and reached his home. Babar's parents had returned from Canada for the wedding. His aunt welcomed me and led me to his room. I sat there, alone, tangled in my own thoughts and nerves. I couldn't shake off a strange fear. The memory of Neelam's swollen face the morning after her wedding haunted me. When she had discovered the truth about her husband on her wedding night, she had come back home the next morning looking devastated. I couldn't help but fear something like that might happen to me. After a long wait, Babar finally entered the room. I shyly lowered my gaze as he came and sat beside me. He took my hand, and before he could say anything romantic or loving, he asked an unexpected question. "Where did you get this bracelet from?" I was taken aback. I didn't know how to respond. How could I possibly explain that this expensive bracelet was given to me by a woman my mother had once kicked out of our house? I gave a vague answer. It was a gift. The moment I said it, I felt his grip on my wrist loosen. I looked up at him. His expression had turned hard, filled with suspicion. My blood turned cold. He was staring at me with eyes full of hatred. And then, without warning, he yanked my scarf from my head and threw it aside. He shoved me down onto the bed. I couldn't understand what had come over him. Why was he treating me like this? But what happened next shattered every illusion I had about my new life. He tore off all my jewelry, then picked up my own scarf and used it to tightly bind my hands. He even gagged my mouth. I was in shock, unable to speak, unable to cry for help. What followed was beyond anything I could have imagined. On what was supposed to be my wedding night, Babar turned it into a night of torment. My muffled cries, the tears that streamed down my face, none of it moved him. He showed no mercy. Instead, with brutal aggression, he took what he believed was his right. He marked every part of my body as if branding me as his property. He treated me not like a wife, but as an object to conquer. My soul shattered that night. When love binds a man and a woman, the physical bond becomes something beautiful. But when it comes from hatred, it drags a woman into a pit of shame. What was supposed to be a sacred union built on love, Babar made it a punishment born from hatred. He pushed me into a dark abyss of guilt and humiliation. It felt like he had been possessed. His rage didn't end. He poured it onto me as if I were the cause of all his suffering. I had no choice but to endure it in helpless silence. The night dragged on endlessly. At one point, I felt like I was losing my mind. Either I would faint or completely lose myself. And then, just before dawn, he finally stopped. He pulled away, got up, and said coldly, "You're not worthy of me. Girls like you aren't made for marriage." His words sent chills down my spine. After everything he had just done to me, violating me, torturing me, he stood there, declaring that I wasn't good enough for him. As soon as he removed the gag from my mouth, I screamed at him. "Why did you do this to me? You're not a man. You're a monster. You tortured me all night, and now you say I'm not good enough? You're the one who ruined me." He laughed cruelly and said, "I'm the one who ruined you. You're already a characterless woman. God knows how many men you've fooled around with, and you dare tell me I ruined your life? I ruined mine by marrying you. I'm a respectable man. I can't keep someone like you as my wife. Who knows how many beds you've shared before mine?" He looked me up and down in disgust. "Take your things and get out. You'll receive your divorce papers soon." I was shattered. As he turned to leave, I fell to his feet, crying and begging him, "Please don't do this to me. I'm not what you think. I come from a decent family. I'm a respectable woman. Don't accuse me like this. I won't be able to face the world." He kicked my hands away and hissed, "I knew what kind of girl you were the moment I saw that bracelet." With that, he shoved me aside and stormed out of the room. I could barely stand. My body ached. My soul was bruised, but somehow I pulled myself together, changed out of my wedding clothes, and sat on the floor silently crying. A short while later, my mother-in-law entered the room. Her tone was harsh. "Babar left the house furious. He said he doesn't want to see you here when he returns. I don't know what you've done, but whatever it is, my son wants you gone immediately." I tried to tell her I'd know what was happening, that I was innocent. But she didn't listen. She packed my belongings, threw them into a car, and ordered the driver coldly, take her back to her house. I had no choice but to return to my parents' home. When they saw me early in the morning in that shattered state, they were shocked. I collapsed into my mother's arms and cried uncontrollably. She asked what had happened. "What did Babar do to you?" Why would he treat you this way? All I could say was, I don't know. He just kept calling me characterless. And then he said this bracelet proves it. I showed her the bracelet and she stared at it in astonishment. This looks very expensive, she said. Where did you get it? I knew I couldn't hide the truth any longer. I couldn't afford another mistake. So I told her the truth. Her old friend had given it to me outside the market as a gift. The moment I said that, my mother held her head in her hands. Say, why would you take it from her? She cried. And worse, why would you wear it to your in-laws' house on your wedding day? Do you even know who she is? Do you know why I rejected the proposal she brought? Why I told you never to go near her? She broke down crying. Tell me, I begged. Tell me what's going on. And then the truth hit me like a lightning bolt. She's not my friend, my mother said slowly. She's a prostitute. And not just that, she's your biological mother. When your father was young, he used to visit brothels. One day, he came back from one of those places, with you in his arms. He said, Landon, this is a prostitute's daughter. Her life will be ruined if she grows up there. We have no children. Let's raise her as our own. She paused to wipe her tears. I was desperate for a child and I didn't question it. I took you in, raised you as my daughter, loved you as my own. After that, your father never returned to those places. But years later, your birth mother came looking for you. I didn't want you to meet her. I kept her away. Sometimes she would leave money for your expenses or bring you gifts, but I always returned everything. I never believed she had any right over you. She paused again, trying to gather herself. When she came with a marriage proposal, I immediately refused. I didn't want any relationship of yours to be connected to her. I wanted her far away from your life, because her presence could destroy your future. If the world ever found out you were the daughter of a prostitute, no one would ever accept you. I felt the ground slipping from beneath my feet. I cast her out for good, my mother said. But I never imagined you would bring your own downfall into this house. You accepted her gift. You wore it. Who knows who gave her that bracelet? Maybe your husband recognized it. Maybe he knew its origin. Or maybe there's something connected to that bracelet that revealed everything to him. Only he can say for sure. But one thing is certain. You handed him the proof yourself. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My whole life had just been turned upside down. The people I had called my parents all my life weren't really my parents. The woman I thought was just an old friend of my mother was actually my biological mother. I collapsed to the floor, sobbing. Everything had changed. My father, trying to calm me down, said, "Don't worry, I'll fix this." He forcefully called Babar and his mother to our home. Babar didn't want to come, but his mother, a wise and understanding woman, convinced him. That's when Babar finally revealed the truth. This bracelet, he said, isn't from around here. It's a custom piece from Dubai, designed by a famous jeweler. One of my friends had it made especially as a gift for a prostitute. And when my husband saw that bracelet on my wrist on our wedding night, he immediately assumed I was the same prostitute, for whom the bracelet had been specially designed. There was only one such bracelet in the world. Hearing this, my father stepped in and said, "Call your friend right now and ask him, was the prostitute my daughter or someone else?" Babar sent my photo to his friend and asked him. The friend responded clearly. He didn't know me at all. Hearing this, Babar's face turned pale with shame. Then he asked again, "But where did this bracelet come from?" My father calmly handled the situation and said, "The place where I work, my employer gave it to me as a gift. Maybe he brought it from Dubai, or maybe the prostitute your friend gave it to sold it later, and my employer unknowingly bought it. I don't know the source. But one thing I do know, my daughter has nothing to do with that woman or that world." After hearing this, Babar lowered his head in embarrassment and apologized to me. I forgave Babar because deep down I knew I was partly at fault. I had not listened to my parents, and I had paid the price. I returned with Babar to my in-laws' house. Today I live a peaceful and happy life with him, but somewhere in my heart a fear still lingers, that one day my birth mother might show up at my doorstep. And if that day comes, I won't know how to answer Babar's questions. What do you all think? Should I tell Babar the whole truth about my past? Please share your valuable thoughts in the comments.